Old World, Florida.
Old World, Florida.
Old World, Florida. Dude, I'm telling you, dude. Dr. Narco Longo came on and dropped the hammer of the god.
America's mother, daughter of Atlantis. God sent the Weatherland. The devil sent the Spanish. Florida is Eden, the fountain of youth. Cali is deception. So Florida is the truth.
Welcome to Florida, baby.
Dr. Narco Longo.
Florida, it is everything. There's too much truth bomb being dropped. I can't digest it all.
Old World, Florida.
Please welcome Dr. Narco Longo.
What's up, guys? How's everyone doing? Happy Sunday, everyone. As we fill in here, let me know if I sound good. Sorry I'm a little late. Bookstore closes at 9. We had an event and it carried over a little bit. And yeah, it takes time to set up and stuff. But yeah, just me for right now. Shem might be popping in. And I get a little lonely sometimes, but you know, no problem going alone on this one because the Bible is the best book to read. It's the most engaging, illuminating. You can have a field day with it. So we're going to be reading from Genesis, kind of where we stopped off last time. And this is going to be a weekly thing as much as I can. It needs to happen. People need to read the Bible. People need to recognize the validity, the veracity of the Bible. And yeah, there's a lack of faith today. People are, when it comes to questioning the Bible and critiquing the Bible and critiquing Jesus, it seems like today everyone's an expert on that. But when you get people to kind of try and support the Bible, you know, it's just so fashionable to hate on the Bible today, to hate on Jesus. And that's not cool with me. It's not right with God. And if our country's suffering, it's because people aren't taking that seriously. So we're going to start with Florida. We're going to show Florida the way. Florida's going to show America the way. And America will show the rest of the world the way. So I'm waiting on my Bible here. I've got to change the background. Give me a little time here. Even though I ran over 40 minutes, I'm still not prepared. So I'll just tell you guys what I did today. How about that? Well, hey, August, can you get my Bible, please?
Your what?
King James Version Bible, please. I went to church today at Bethesda by the Sea in Palm Beach Island, which is Trump's church, among other people. Episcopal church, super cool. Love it there. Very pretty. The grounds, the building itself, stone structure. Super nice going over there. And when we were there, this is my first time ever attending a service there. We're sitting in the back, and the preacher made his entire sermon on banyan trees. Banyan trees. Now, it's hard not to kind of put myself at the center of that and think, oh, is this guy watch Old World Florida? Because he was talking about Jesus, identifying Jesus with the banyan, the vine of vines. So it was pretty trippy. And of course, I'm sure he had no idea who I am. Probably never watched the YouTube channel. He said he wasn't from Florida, just kind of recently moved into town. But he made his whole sermon on banyan trees being, like the Jesus tree, and them being unique and how they fall down from heaven to earth, things like that. So that was very cool. A sign from God. And guys, if you're a stranger to religion, that's kind of not to, reduce its value, but that's kind of just like everyday life being a Christian. You meet all these new age people who are like, oh, my angel numbers pop up every day and I'm so in sync. No, you're just in kindergarten. Try Christianity on for a try. And it's synchronicity after revelation after reflection after revelation after. It's 10 times better than just seeing the same number on your clock over and over again. So what's up, Shem?
What's going
How we
on?
chilling? What, you got a new haircut?
Yeah, new wig just came in.
Looks pretty good, dude. You going for like the more mullet type urban
Yeah, you could say that.
country cut?
Yeah, it's popular right now, right?
Yeah, it looks fire, dude. Looks like you're about to lax it up, the boys.
Big ups. What are we getting into?
Just talking Jenny, bro. Talking Jenny. My sis, Jenny. Jenny sis. And we were talking a little bit about Genesis, reading through it not yesterday, a Sunday ago or 2 Sundays ago, I forget, with Al Dog. And I think we got to the part about the tree of life in the Garden of Eden. So lots to tee off on with this. But are you, do you want to share with people maybe your religious upbringing or where you might be approaching this from? Skeptically as a believer, or happy to have you nonetheless. Thank you.
Oh,
Sean.
yeah. I mean, I didn't have much of a religious upbringing. My parents had me when they were pretty young. So I kind of grew up with them as they were experiencing life, and they weren't religious people. But my view on God is that I think God doesn't have any human characteristics whatsoever. So I don't think that it's proper to ever associate any type of characteristics related to humanity with him. And
Okay. Now, what about the in the image of God bit? Oh, I'm sorry. I'll let you go. Sorry.
I mean, that's a good question. In the image of God. So, in making man in the image of God may have been similar to, I guess, more of a mindset as opposed to the actual physical representation. But there are multiple theories about what that could be, and I entertain all of them. The
Right.
whole idea of like the male female thing, all that stuff.
Totally. Well, thanks for being here, Shem. Love your stuff you're putting out recently. Very funny. Very strikes that need to be struck.
Appreciate it.
Whatever you want to call it. I don't even know. You hate what you do, essentially. You always make it seem like, but it makes me laugh. And
It's just depressing because I don't know. I want to talk about what's going on in reality, and it's really hard to find people who actually just want to talk about stuff as opposed to like selling a book or something stupid.
okay, but what if I talk about reality for like a good 2 years, then write a book and decide to sell the book?
There's nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying it does cause frustration sometimes when People aren't
Yeah.
willing to have just conversations. Like most of the time when I talk to people, I like to do it off the air because they're more open to, new ideas and stuff like that.
Totes.
But
Yeah, I get you, man. People are shilling garbage nowadays.
you could say that. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
life is tough. People just want to, people want to live a certain lifestyle. I don't blame them. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just, there's
Mhm.
different levels, I guess, of what people want to do, how they want to spend their lives.
Totes. Are you familiar with Genesis? Like, do you read it, like researching stuff, or
I'm
you
reading
reference
it.
it?
I'm actually on it right now in my latest read through of the Bible. I'm reading a different version that people probably won't like, but I'm reading this right now.
Nice.
It comes with all the notes and stuff,
Yeah.
so you get to hear some of the interpretations from various people over time about what they think it means. So right now I'm still in Genesis. I read the entire introduction, which is like, of course, incredibly long, just people babbling on, but I mean, you learn stuff from it as well.
Mhm.
So
And was that's a family heirloom
yeah,
that you inherited?
passed down from generation to generation.
It still has the blood of Christians that's been spilt on that book.
Probably, yeah.
No.
No, but yeah. I mean, I heard you say last time, I think, or maybe it was the time before, something about how you're circumcised. So you're not too far off there yourself, buddy.
Of course I'm circumcised. I mean, is that my fault?
No. As long as the prophet Elijah wasn't there to witness it, then you're not officially Jewish.
No. Just being circumcised doesn't make you Jewish. If being circumcised makes you Jewish, then boom, Native American.
It has to be. There's a specific ritual associated with it where they basically have the prophet Elijah be a witness, and then they take that single drop of blood.
Yeah.
So if you didn't do that, then you're not officially Jewish.
Oh, dude, did you hear a couple days ago, or maybe a week ago, I was telling a story about how I was debating a rabbi right over here on the couch, right over here.
No, I didn't hear about it. What happened?
This rabbi came in, nice guy. He was vegetarian, so we actually had some common ground. But turns out he was specifically a circumcising rabbi. Like that was his specialty. Like that was his expertise. And I was asking him, and we didn't really get into like the whole, suction dilemma, which I, detest and condemn wholeheartedly to hell whoever engages in stuff like that. And they know that. That's why they've created a cosmos. They've created a way of looking at the world where there is no afterlife. There is no divine punishment. There is no keeping of the scales. But blah blah blah. He goes. I was showing him stuff about ritual immersion, like the Native Americans in Florida would ritually immerse themselves in spring water, very similar to like the mikveh in Judaism or Old Testament, whatever. So I was talking to this about him. I was going through all these seminal connections, and he's like, "Wow, that's really interesting." And then we were talking about the mikveh, which is where you dip yourself in. It's almost like the word stairwell. What's the difference between a stairwell and a staircase? Well, the stairwell terminates in water, and the stairwell goes down into water. So you follow the stairs into the well, and you'd ritually immerse yourself in the mikveh. Well, we were talking about it, and he goes, "Yeah, well, did you know that when people convert to Judaism, in order for it to be an actual conversion, where this person is fully adopted into the faith, and in their bloodline will be considered Jewish from then on, do you know what you have to do?"
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. You have to, if you're an adult, you have to have that drop of blood taken from your
Exactly.
mouth.
The rabbi will prick the tip of your dick. They'll prick your prick to get a little drop of blood, and they do it in the mikveh, so it mixes with the water, and you're like, dude.
Which is strange because it's like one of the only times that they're allowed to come in contact with blood. And the mikvah, yeah, it's very important. Like, for example, a lot of Jewish people, they'll only have sexual relations during the Sabbath because it's like some special thing regarding the mikvah and their wife and stuff like that. And that's like the cleanest time in their mind to have a child without the possibility of it being corrupted by like a demonic soul or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was weird how that's one of the only times that they're allowed to come in contact with blood really is during the ritual. And I think the reason that they say that they do it is because they have the possibility that every circumcised Jew could be the Messiah. So they call upon Elijah to witness the circumcision and the
Well,
blood ritual just in case that happens to be the Messiah.
mhm. Well, so you want to get into it?
Go for it.
Read some Genesis. We were talking, of course, going through Genesis, talking about Adam and Eve. Well, the days of creation. We were going through how they're not necessarily 24 hours. That's not really a breakthrough idea, but just kind of ironing it out and proving it that without the sun and the moon in the sky, there is no 24-hour day. With the waters, the light, cymatics, how God describes himself, declares his attributes. Talking, speech is his primary function, it seems. Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Moved upon the face of the waters makes me think of either the sun rising over the water and the beard of the sun, which is the golden strip from you to the sun on the horizon that you see reflecting in the water. Or I tend to think it is cymatics, unseen force acting on water, acting on matter in a way that can only be demonstrated when you see a cymatic experiment, when sound manipulates matter. And not only does it move it, it is ingrained throughout time, if man were to be nuked off the face of the planet, which can never happen, but if man did not exist, if no animal existed, these laws would still be ingrained in nature. The cymatic patterns that pop up. How does the salt? And I know it's hard for people to imagine or visualize if you're not familiar with cymatics, but just look them up. It's one of the biggest proofs of God there is, as far as I'm concerned. How does the salt or the water know what geometric shape it's going to assume when the next pitch is approaching? When cymatics is where you basically have amplified sound, like loud sound, vibrating a metal plate with salt on top of it. There's other instances of cymatic, resonance, but this is the most popular on YouTube. Go look it up, cymatics experiment. The salt intelligently moves into shape, into form. It snaps into form. It assumes form. It is disciplined beyond human, human awareness. Like I said, if there's no such thing as light in the universe, visual light, if this was a pitch black universe, these grains of salt would still be assuming intuitively different shapes. Nobody's instructing the salt on the plate in which form to take, but it will. If you go to 880 hertz, you're going to see the same shape, no matter what. If you're in Palestine, if you're in Peru, if it's different types of salt, you're still going to get these same shapes responding to the same frequencies. So when God says spoke, and he says moved on the waters, and then this brings about light, it has to bring to mind sonoluminescence, a cymatic experiment. Just look that out. Check it out for yourself. I'm not going to pretend I've articulated this to a point where it makes sense to everyone. It shouldn't. It should be.
In a way, it does though, because some people speculate about these certain shapes having something to do with the process of creation in general.
Yes.
Like I think there's the guy's name is Robert Grenier or Bob Grenier. He recently did a video where he was talking about he found the actual shape of creation. Now I just listened to the audio, so I didn't actually see what the shape was, but it was pretty fascinating what he was saying. So I think you're
Yeah.
onto something. But there are multiple interpretations of what that verse could be referring to. But the light is definitely there in every interpretation I've heard of.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, to your point about like levels of creation or stages of creation, you could even say when you look at some of these cymatic shapes, it almost looks like eggs dividing. Like some of the lowest frequencies are the most rugged, simple, geometric shapes that you're kind of used to, and then as it increases, as the pitch rises, you see more and more complex shapes and more fine, geometric nuance to the shapes. So you're almost seeing something like cellular reproduction, except it's not a single cell. It's not an organism. It's the process of sound acting on matter. As you raise pitch, frequency, you're going to see these crazy, crazy shapes. So, how many times are the word low and high used in the Bible? High frequency, low frequency, high pitch, low pitch.
And the
Blah,
sounds
blah,
of
blah.
the sounds of the heavens, which correlate with some of the
Yeah.
stuff where people are talking about the planets making
Hmm.
having certain frequencies and certain sounds that the ancients were somehow able to measure,
Totally.
or allegedly. But yeah,
So we're just, kind of glossing over what we learned last time, what we talked about. So days of creation, just kind of dispelling some myths and bringing some logic to the first chapter of Genesis. But I think we got to the point of the tree of life. I forget exactly where we got to, but we were talking about the tree of life. And this is another thing. Is it physical? Is it literal? Is it singular? Well, I put forth the idea that the tree of life in the middle of the garden, in the midst of the garden, is the world tree, Yggdrasil, represented in pretty much every world culture faith. But you're not seeing an actual tree with roots and branches. It's a symbol of the torus field. So the tree is the torus field. Can you show someone a torus field? Not really. There aren't really donut shapes in nature so much. But a tree has that shape. A tree, you can really ingrain it in someone's mind what the torus field is. How there's roots below, branches above. And even though they're in different planes, they're performing the same function and they're mirroring each other to a degree.
Yeah.
So the world tree is the tree of life to me. Now, we're not discounting any tantric or psychoactive, drug theories. I'm well aware of those too, and we're going to get into them in the next couple verses. But the tree of life in itself, being separate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, seems to be at least the tree of all trees. It's got to be the tree at the center of the Viking, Norse pantheon, the Norse, their way of looking at the world. They've got the tree in the middle. And you see this with just about every culture. So the tree of life being the torus field makes a whole lot more sense. And what is tree in Spanish? I think is arbol. Is that correct?
I'm not sure.
You don't speak Spanish?
No.
Dude, so you only speak colonizer languages?
Yeah.
Sucks,
Well,
dude.
I only speak to people who speak English. By
Arbol.
languages.
So yeah, arbol is tree. I was right. Aren't you Hispanic? Don't you have Hispanic heritage?
The only heritage I know about for sure is Sicilian. I
True.
asked my grandma, and she said that her family came from Sicily. And this was like a few months ago that I found this out.
Bunch of silly sissies over there. Whatever. But my bad. Our bowl is tree. In our bowl, you have bowl. Bowl goes back to Taurus. So the Taurus field, Taurus means bowl, and then the tree, word for tree in Spanish and many Latin languages, is our bowl. So bowl, there you go. You're seeing the same Taurus field symbolism. So we talked about the tree of life, and I think we're going to pick up here in the right spot. Could be wrong.
Where we at?
Forget where I was at.
And a river issues from Eden to the water of the garden, divides four branches. Is that where you're at?
You know where we were?
Based on what you're saying, I'm just guessing. Is that where you're at? The part about the four branches coming off, because you mentioned the trees. So I'm not sure how much further you made it past that.
Who remembers where we ended? I'm gonna have to go look up. I'm gonna have to go watch it.
So did you talk about the Tigris and the Euphrates and stuff like that?
I don't think so.
So you might be on 10.
Yeah, I think we got to the tree of life. I think we're just chapter 2, verse 9, I think is where we were. Yes. Yep, that's where we were. So we're just going to start back up. Genesis chapter 2. Refresher. Thus, the King James Version, by the way. So your Jewish study Bible won't get you very far here.
They're all so different. I have a new international version as well. It's just completely different.
Yeah. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day God ended his work which he had made. And he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which God created and made. These are the generations of the heavens and of the earth when they were created, in the day that the Lord God made the earth and the heavens, and every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew. For the Lord God had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground. But there went up a mist from the earth, and watered the whole face of the ground. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. And the Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden. So we'll stop right there.
In your opinion, is this second mention of the creation of man something separate from the original mention, or is this just going back and referring to that?
That's pretty untapped territory. I mean, E. Calloway really hones in on that in his book, In the Beginning, which proclaims Florida to be the original Garden of Eden. He really hones in on the two separate creations. That's what you're referring to, right? God created man in the fourth day or whatever. Let me look back.
The part where it says in his image. Yeah, because it says
third day. No, that's not right.
No, because it says that he made him in his image, and then later on it comes back.
Yeah. Seems like the fifth day, maybe sixth day. I should know that. But it's easy to forget that God creates man and then comes back to it in detail later. That's kind of what people assume, is that you were just revisiting the story, the original creation, in greater detail. But E. Calloway says, no, this is two distinct, separate creations of man. And he kind of puts forth that the first creation of man was somewhat like a hominid species, almost like a primate. Might have been hairless. He doesn't really go into detail, but he says the first creation did not have the breath of life. Gotta check that.
It's interesting because yeah, some other people talk about like for example, Moses Maimonides talks about it being two separate creations as well, and that the first one
Yeah.
was both male and female together.
Yeah. So Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air. So we talked about that a bit last time we did this. In that instance, God does not endow man with the breath of life or form. He made man in his image, in their image. It's plural. It's implied that it's plural. But let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the flesh. So when they create this man in the first instance, it's actually plural. And they're not going into details about females, but they are clearly establishing that multiple men or a race of men have been created. So let them, multiple men or a race of men. Now, that does not have the breath of life and does not have form. So you could say that this is whatever this creation was not endowed with what modern man has today.
Can I read from this? Can I read from this?
Yeah.
Other version. It says,
Please
"And God
do.
created man in His image, in the image of God, He created him, male and female. He created them." So in this version, they actually do reference the female being created at the same time,
Interesting.
which is really fascinating because when you listen to some of these rabbi debating in history, like if you read the Talmud or like the Zohar, for example, they'll be debating about why they mention this specifically, and they'll give like the actual Hebrew words that they use, and then give sources for why they
So
think that it.
yeah, well, you were right. I stopped at 20. I stopped at 26, but in verse 27, it does go on to say
Okay, cool.
male and female. Excuse me,
It's all
but
good.
it doesn't say form or breath of life. It says made. Made.
Because I think the breath of life, like, well, some people debate the breath of life is referring to something different, like for example, knowledge or some sort of realization of who they
Yeah,
are,
sure.
or I guess you could call it enlightenment. Like, but so for
Well,
example, before like the original creation that is both male and female would potentially be living in a permanent state of the Garden of Eden because they're completely unaware of any type of troubles or problems within reality.
right. It also probably
Yeah, so it seems like it's not too far off from each other, but I have noticed some differences so far from what you're reading.
so here we'll go back to chapter 2 and the more detailed. Oh, we got some big money coming down the hatch here. Uh-oh. Adam Othman. Love this show. Looking forward to getting through the entire Bible. Oh yeah. Well,
$50.
we're chipping
Wow.
away at it, bro. We're getting up in there. Full steam ahead, Adam. Thanks for the money, dude. Appreciate it.
Ezekiel's going to be interesting when you get there.
It's all gonna be interesting. Adam, appreciate it, man. You have a good night. Let us know if you want us to talk about anything in particular. Appreciate it. I'll smoke it to good use, as I always say. But so yeah, let's without dwelling on chapter 1 too much. Chapter 2, we have the second instance of creation. Either it's second instance or it's a revisiting and a more detailed account, like I'm saying. Shem brought up a great point, and E.E. Calloway kind of agrees with the argument that there's two distinct creations. And we're going to talk about the second one here. You'll see the differences. But I stopped at verse 8 because we're looking at verse 7 And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. So I think we were talking about this last time, actually. We made it about that far. And we were talking about breath of life. Breathe into your nostrils for the breath of life, guys. If you're not nostril breathing, if you're not nasal breathing, you're not taking in the breath of life. Now, originally, I think breath of life means spirit. Man has spirit, something that the other animals don't. Now, is this a soul? I don't know. But spirit has to do with breath, inspiration, respiration. Spirit means breath. So, when God says he breathed breath of life into the nostrils of man, what does that tell me? Number one, we should probably be breathing through our nostrils, not our mouth. If you're breathing through your mouth, that I'm filling in some blanks here, but I'd assume if you're breathing into your mouth, that is the breath of death. Yeah. Early dental issues, gum disease, bad breath, snoring, all of this comes from mouth breathing. Keep your mouth shut. If you're not talking, shut your mouth.
What is the type of, I forget what the term used, but when someone's dying or they're in trauma and they're trying to catch their breath as they're dying, it's like agonal breathing or something like that. I think they're breathing through their mouth during that, but I'm not sure, which is interesting that you made that reference. And also, muth or MTH in Hebrew, from what I remember, I think is like the term for death as well, which comes from mouth. So I'm not 100% sure on that one, but I think I remember reading that.
Sure, yeah. Are you into mewing at all, Shem? Has it ever came across your desk?
I've seen the memes about it, but I've never tried it. What about you?
I am a mewer. I was mewing way before it was famous, way before it was cool or trendy. I remember coming across it, studying. Santos Bonacci was talking about how the wise men, and this is in the Bible too, the wise men let their tongues cleave to the roof of their mouths. It says that multiple times in the Bible. Wisdom or good decision making going hand in hand with your tongue having proper posture up on the roof of your mouth, not sunken down. So yeah, it's the only spot on your body where you can tickle yourself is the roof of your mouth. That tells us there's a special connection. There's an electrical circuit going on there. Your tongue needs to be up on the roof of your mouth if you want your third eye to open. I don't mean that in a new agey, lame way. I mean that in if the Bible doesn't make sense to you, your third eye is not open. Your pineal gland's not pumping the juice it needs to be to make sense. Religion doesn't make sense if your third eye is closed. That's where you get you can read the Bible all you want, but if your higher chakras are closed, energy centers, nerve centers, I hate saying chakra. I'm so over all this Indian garbage, like pseudo-spiritual new age, calling something a chakra or calling something by its Sanskrit name does not make it more holy or sacred or not true. So nerve centers, we'll just call them nerve centers. The pineal gland, pituitary gland. The nerve centers, the one in between the eyes, in the brow, is associated with religious insight, inner picture, inner imagination, the projector screen inside the brain. So whenever it's saying God appeared before me, an angel appeared before me, and all this stuff in the Bible, I'm not taking that out of the realm of possibility that physical angels can appear and people can have some wacky things, believe that they saw some wacky things. You've got UFO abductions all over here. But when it comes to
Mewing.
Thank you. Mewing, blah, blah, blah. Keep your tongue up on the roof of your mouth. Okay.
It takes discipline too, and it takes concentration. It's almost like the like the certain rabbi who wear like the black cubes around their head and have the tape on their arms, like they're looking like they're trying to trigger anything. You have to do certain things throughout the day to be able to do that constantly. So it's like a similar concept of keeping yourself in a certain state to become more, I guess, enlightened at the end of the day. So like in order to do what you're saying, to put your tongue on top of your mouth throughout the entire day, it's going to take months of practice to make that your natural posture, if not longer. I've never tried it, so I don't know how long it takes, but think about that. And then you have some of the propaganda against that idea that says you can swallow your tongue by putting it on the top of your mouth. So
No.
I remember learning that in like high school or something for some reason, but yeah, it's an interesting concept. I haven't heard about that before in relation to mewing.
No, yeah. So mewing is revolutionary. I'm almost like it's like a cool band. Like you like a band, but everyone else likes them, so it's like I don't want to talk about it, all the time. But mewing is the truth. It is a religious, requirement. You want to see God, if you want to live a spiritually sound life, keep your mouth shut. Demons fly right through your mouth. Truly, there's many people who believe this.
Yeah, I mean, that guy
Demons,
said it. He said, "You can't speak while mewing. The wise are silent."
exactly. Yes, there's yes a wisdom with silence, but it also is just you've got to, if you're going to be a holy man, your skeleton needs to be aligned, upright, and mewing helps that. Mewing prevents snoring, so it's going to add years to your life. Snoring takes years off your life. Guaranteed fact. Snoring takes years off your life. Go look it up. You're drying out all of your organs. Dry out when you snore and leave your mouth open. Your saliva is drier. Your blood is less watery. Every part of you dehydrates when you snore. Keep your mouth shut. Tape it shut if you got to. There's mouth tape out there. If you got to start off doing that, keep your mouth shut. If you're feeling a dryness in your mouth, if you're feeling a dryness on your teeth, your mouth's open and you need to shut it. Drink some water, keep it moist. That's how your gums are going to be healthy. That's how your teeth are going to be pearly white. They need to be coated in a natural saliva, full of enzymes. Nothing's going to stick to your teeth if your mouth is moist. It's a fact. Plaque, tartar, all this junk is the number one cause of tooth decay and tooth issues is dryness. I don't need to be a dentist to know that. It's obvious. It's evident. People who leave their mouth open have worse teeth, worse gums, a lot of colors going on in their mouth. It's disgusting. Okay? Keep your mouth shut. Breathe in through your nose. You're going to smell the world. The smell is the richest sense, by the way. Smell is the richest and most deepest sinking sense that you have. Truly. You might think it's vision, but no, it's sense. Scent is most intertwined with memory and intelligence, believe it or not, and sexual aptitude, but we'll just whatever. So breathing into your nose makes you a genius. The Greek gods are all depicted with a straight nose. Greek nose is what? A Greek nose is when the bridge of the nose goes right up to the third eye. And the air, symbolically, figuratively, is going. When you breathe in, this is a good trick to bring in a righteous, knowledge-filled breath.
Nose check.
Okay? The knowledge, intellect, education is in the breath. You can tell how someone thinks by their breathing. Spend time next to someone and watch their rate of breath. If you can see them breathing fast or slow, you can tell a hell of a lot about them. If someone's huffing and puffing, yeah, you know a lot about them. So, breathing into your nostrils, well, back to the Greek part. Having a Greek nose, they're depicted with straight noses, not because everyone looked like that, but because they're trying to show you nobility depends on breath. If you're breathing too quickly, you cannot fall into a soothed, relaxed state. They're incompatible in most senses, unless you're on drugs or something. A raised heart rate, raised breathing is not associated with relaxation. Zen. Breathing into your nose, calmly, slowly, with intention. I hate that. I hate saying that, with intention. Most cringe thing, most cringe phrase in the English.
Breathing with intention is torture though. Like if you ever have that happen to you where you think about your breathing and then you can't get back to like automatic breathing for 20 minutes or something. I mean, I don't know if everyone experiences that, but it happens sometimes. But yeah, let's there's a great mewing lesson, but let's get on with the Bible here. What do we
Okay, fine.
bored?
Shem's bored, guys.
I'm not bored. I'm not bored. I just didn't know mewing was that deep. It's pretty cool.
Well, God breathed in through our nostrils, so it means a hell of a lot. And yeah. Okay, so God formed man of the dust of the ground. Form implies purpose. Form implies like a artistic integrity, architectural integrity. Form implies geometric truth. Form is a concept above chaos, removed from chaos, removed from random, removed from inconsistency. Form is godly. Form is a big concept, big concept. People really don't. People gloss over that form in there. Form really is the act of the creator, right? But whatever. Breathing into the nostrils, that's where you get the mewing. And there's a whole lot more in the Bible later on to support mewing. Only breathing in through your nose unless you're getting attacked by a tiger, unless you're getting, unless you're running, and that's why we're able to breathe in through the mouth. We can gulp down big breaths very quick if you need to. But I recommend everyone, stretch that threshold, expand that threshold where you can run a mile through your nose or breathing through your nose. I can do that. 2 miles is what I strive for. When I'm at my healthiest, I can run 2 miles without opening my mouth. Do you know what that's like? That is, a different type of aerobic. You're going to be so much more able to fall into a Zen state. Being able to run a mile just breathing through your nose. Well, then what's every day walking around going to feel like? It's going to be a piece of cake. Going upstairs is going to be a piece of cake. And when you need to breathe through your mouth, it's going to actually do what it's supposed to. Instead of being used to being breathed through your mouth, it's doing nothing. You're just stressing yourself out. Mouth breath is associated with stress. This is a fact. If it goes hand in hand, chicken or the egg, it's a cause and an effect. If I'm walking out in the wild and I get attacked by a cheetah, I'm going to have to gulp down air very quick and run away. That's why we're able to gulp down air with your mouth. Let's say I get away though. If I don't slow my breathing down, I'm going to be stuck in that attack state, that stress state. So let's just say you don't need to have the cheetah attack. If you are breathing in through your mouth day to day, you're going to feel like you're being attacked by a wild animal. You're going to feel like you're escaping or you're struggling for your life. So when nobody in your life ever stresses the importance of breathing through your nose, not your mouth, and you're wondering why you're feeling depressed, angry, sick, well, put 2 and 2 together. And if you haven't heard it before, you've heard it now. And you're welcome. But it's in the Bible, and this is available to everyone. So big, important thing.
And it honestly doesn't take long to do what you're saying. If you're using a treadmill or you're just running outside and you keep your mouth closed. We learned this when I played football or other sports when I was younger. They taught us that.
Yeah.
Like it only takes a couple of weeks for you to get used to not opening your mouth at all when that happens, and you do feel a lot better. I mean, I think it's actually good for your organs and stuff as well to have that natural breathing.
Yes. The nose has, some would say, 5 filters, but there's 3 physical filters in your nose. It's the fact that it's this narrow opening, so that in itself is somewhat of a filter. Then you have the hairs of the nostril. That's a filter. Hairs. Why are they all teaching everyone to trim their nose hairs? Well, you're essentially ripping the filter out of your air conditioning unit and just breathing in the dust from outside. Keep your nose hairs, guys. Okay, keep your nose hairs. Women, within reason, Keep your nose hairs, okay? That's your first filter, or your second filter, you could say. Then there's the walls of your sinuses, which are literally like a mucous membrane, and certain things can come in, certain things get deposited into the mucus and have to get snotted out. Jesus, dude, fucking, you got a family, dude?
Me?
Adam, thanks for the $100, man. Yo, if you got a family, spend this on your family. Or if you're flying high and you're making bank, then keep tipping. Appreciate it though, my dude. $100 from Adam Othman. When you have time to break it down, would love to hear what you think about the more violent parts of the book. Order by the Lord to genocide, suckling babes, elderly, etc., is part of the Old Testament written by a demon. Those are really good questions. That is mostly Exodus. So we're going to be getting into Exodus, but since you've supported with so much money, I will give you a...
Completely changes the vibe of the entire discussion. We're pretty much forced to talk about difficult subjects or just like play this question easy because this is a difficult one.
I'll give you one. It's pretty easy. I love William Lane Craig. I love watching William Lane Craig. He's a genius. He has a 130 IQ, if not higher. He's super smart, super articulate. I'm a sucker for articulation. Okay. I'm a sucker for it. William Lane Craig is so articulate. He knows the Bible inside and out. And the best part is he's a Christian apologist. For those who don't know, he debates evolutionists on the assumption that evolution is evil. Oh, sorry. He debates atheists on the assumption that evolution is evil. Fuck. I'm crying. He debates atheists against atheism, but still under the assumption that evolution is true. Did I say it right there? So
I'm not familiar with his work, but I think so.
Whatever. But he runs into this. They all try and corner him on this. This is one of the main things. They say, well, hey, why did God order a genocide? And it's not actually a genocide because, the Canaanites and Philistine and there's other, tribes they're going to war with. Most of them actually occur after this instance. So it's not a total genocide. And actually, the order is to seize the land with penalty of death. So, yes, it's pretty cutthroat, but it's not an outright execution order. What it says is seize the land by penalty. So if these people don't leave the land, then they're subject to death. Now, there's a whole lot of reasons you can argue against that and say, well, that's evil. It's just flat out evil. It's genocide. But when you get down to the nitty gritty of what those people were actually doing, there's great evidence to show that bestiality, pedophilia, temple prostitution of the worst sorts, not the cool ones, blood sacrifice, of course, it goes without saying. All of these things were widespread in the Levant around the times, we're told, of Exodus. So if you've got a people neighboring your country who are engaged in some of the most vile acts known to man, at the end of the day, you might not be, fighting for the survival of a couple kids and a couple women. You just got to look at history sometimes and say, hey, these people were opposed to these people and they're not making room for each other. And if you need to exterminate the offspring of your enemy to, be 100% sure that your enemy is extinguished, well, that's what they were going for back then. Is it something I would do right now? Well, if they keep sacrificing heifers over in the Middle East, we might have some grounds for, who that should be done to. But if we're just using some hypothetical, people in the Old Testament that God, it seems, put out an order against, saying, hey, you have permission to execute them, and the women and the children. He's really telling them to evacuate, that they have to leave a place of land. Now, again, you could say the same thing about Palestine. It's literally almost what they're doing right now. It's saying, hey, well, you have to leave. And if you don't leave, anything that happens to you is your fault. So it's not like I'm saying that logic is sound always, but there's other ways you can approach this, like I'm saying. Number one, it's not an explicit execution order. It's leave or else. But then also, we have good evidence to show these people were not genocided. Most of them left, and most of them can be encountered at later points in the Bible, meaning they weren't genocided entirely. And just to be fair, if these are all literal stories, and if these people were warring in the desert, well, who's ever authoring these tales probably would have received no quarter themselves. Does that make sense? Whoever's authoring these stories were not being shown any mercy at the end of the battles they were engaging in. So it's only normal that they would not extend any mercy to their enemies. That is just kind of the name of the game back then, right? So, yeah, $150, I'll endorse genocide, whatever. $150, I'll sing the praise of any act you want me to. I'll dance around like a monkey if you tip another. No, just kidding. I'll start putting out AI generated truther porn comics if you guys will put up that type of money.
Well, yeah,
You're gonna chime in, Shem?
all right, so I'm not saying that I agree with what I'm about to say. I'm just bringing up another point of view since the person asked the question. We also have to consider the possibility that the Old Testament was actually just written by men for a specific purpose, which mainstream history says it was written by the Septuagint, right? Who are the Septuagint in history? They're basically nobility within a class of the Canaanites, the Phoenicians, the people that you were describing earlier, even the Philistines. Basically, the people who survived the fall of the alleged first kingdom of Israel under the new kingdom of Egypt after the Assyrians came in, right? So these people allegedly got together and wrote some books and put together the Old Testament. So some of these stories that seem like God has human characteristics or like an ego could be chalked up to just humans writing stories for a certain purpose at a certain time period.
Right.
Now keep in mind, like I said at the beginning, I believe that God is incorporeal. I don't think that God has any type of human characteristics. So for me, when I see stuff like that, it is sort of a red flag, but I also see the optimistic view that you have as well, or other views that, it's just, symbolism or represents something else entirely.
Well, that's just the easy way out, though. I agree with you, but that's like the last leg of the argument is, well, hey, this is all either allegory or it's propaganda, or it's, to bring in the question, to bring the validity of a document into question, has to come at the end. You have to kind of assume the credibility of a document. Legally speaking, the credibility of a document, documents are assumed to be credible, and the burden of proof is placed on the denier, so to speak. So we're assuming everything in here is true because you have to do a faithful assessment of a document within the worldview of the document, right? If you're bringing in if you're bringing into question the validity of the document, well, you just kind of either have to throw it in the trash bin or leave it for the very end.
I don't necessarily agree with that, but I do see where you're coming from. I don't think that you don't have to throw it all away just because it may not be completely valid. It has to be based on some sort of reality in order for it to have some sort of. I mean, we can agree that the stories within the Bible are definitely divine because they describe multiple things in reality, regardless of how you break it down. So there's no reason why these stories should be able to describe science and also religion perfectly, as far as everything in between, without them being divine in some way.
Good point.
So
Another kind of trapdoor, or easy way out of this is saying, it's the astrotheology. I'm an astrotheologer for mostly, before, I have more expertise, which, I even cringe saying that. I have more familiarity with astrology than I do the Bible. So to me, that's my, codex that I'm using. That's my, um, key to the map that I'm using above all. But even within that, I'm going to delay the theological interpretation for the end, because it applies to the whole document. You know what I mean? You can't just pick a part and say, well, this is the only astrology part. But if we're going to do that, the way to explain this kind of genocide question is it's easy. And it's why I say it's an easy way out is I want to give you a better answer as a Christian and all this. But ultimately, as an astrologer, you just say, well, it's a Saturnian document. Saturn doesn't give a shit. It's the Lord, lowered. Lord with a capital L, that's L. That's the Lord. Lord literally means lowered. Lowered. Lord. Capital L, because it's El, the Phoenician, or Canaanite Semitic deity. But it's also Lord because it's lowered. And the Lord tends to be more of the disciplinarian, tends to be doing more of the punishment in the Bible, and it's definitely the one giving the execution orders in Exodus is the Lord God, and Lord, the Old Testament Saturnian iteration. Well, here, this isn't just a radical astrological, like, hey, I'm an astrologer. This is my own little unique take on the Bible. No. Let's go back to Elohim. We were describing in our image earlier in Genesis when man is created. God, or whoever's speaking for God, or whoever's narrating Genesis, says, "Let us make them in our image." Our image. So our image. If you go back, there's a little bit of contention on this, but it goes back to Elohim. Elohim is defined, not everywhere, but to me the most credibly, is defined as the 7 faces of God. The 7 masks of God, 7 iterations, manifestations of God. Now, 2 of those are the sun and the moon, and the other 5 are the visible planets, the wanderers, the wandering stars. Planet just means wanderer. So Elohim, when it says, let us make man in our image, that's 7 planets being woven into your being. These 7 planets occupy 7 nerve centers in the body. So that's one interpretation of the image that we were created in. In the image of 7 planets, how could that be? If we're upright, primate. I hate saying primate, but we're plotted somewhere in the animal kingdom, and it's closest to primate. So where does the image come from? Is God a monkey? No, but he has 7 lights, 7 representatives in the heavens, and the heavens declare the glory of God. Psalms 19:1, my favorite saying in the Bible. The heavens declare the glory of God, and they showeth his handiwork. It's his greatest creation, and it's the greatest testament to his grand design of the cosmos. It's the greatest proof of his omnipotence. So we're going to get into the Bible. We're going to get into the stars here a little more. We got some tips here. 4th Emperor, thanks for the $10. Copy this and look up the quote. Also, have you ever heard of Bill Donahue? Oh yeah, love Bill Donahue. But again, I want to do better as a Christian. I want to serve the I want to address the literal and physical and intellectual before we just kind of, because I just hate when people say, hey, it's the right hemisphere of the brain, and then they never open the Bible again, or hey, oh, it's just the zodiac, and then you never open the Bible again. Like, I love Bill Donahue. And he probably knows more about the Bible than I ever will. But I don't like it when people read or see Bill Donahue on YouTube and say, oh, I watched the 10-minute video on the Bible. Now I know what the whole Bible's about. And, I'm above it. Like, I know the secret, and everyone else who doesn't know the secret doesn't know the truth in the Bible, and I'm so much better. And you really get like this superiority complex with people who have a little bit of a dose of astrotheology or a little bit of a dose of the right brain, bicameral mind in the Bible, casting your net to the right. I love that stuff. I love Bill Donahue, but I want to do justice to the literal interpretation before we just jump to the, what do they call it? Hypnagogical, transcendental interpretations.
Yeah, the literal interpretation has a lot of value, so you should definitely try to view it from a literal interpretation as you're reading it, and then maybe the next time reading it through, start expanding out.
Yeah. Dan Rather, CBS television interviewer, asked Mother Teresa of Calcutta, when you pray, what do you say to God? Okay. We'll try and look. We might look that up. God's Node, thanks for the $10. Time and place, Genesis 15:16, or chapter 15, verse 16. He gave them a chance before he ordered them destroyed. Also, Israelites had to wait 400 years to escape Egypt. The Pharaoh got 9 chances, plagues also. Yeah, so again, they were given chances to leave their cities. It was the divine order of God. These people were just disobeying, not taking heed, and it was an ugly world back then, Just be glad you lived.
Well, you brought up Kronos, and I think it relates to what you're discussing now. And the 400-year period of the Jews being trapped in Egypt relates to what we're describing. And I think Kronos also relates to the Garden of Eden story that we're about to get to in Genesis in the next few verses, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully we can make it to that part, because I do think that the eating of the tree of knowledge, good and evil, is basically related to the Cronus myth and related to the rule of Cronus, and also the rule of Zeus in Greek mythology in certain ways.
Love to hear that. God's Node, appreciate that. Good insights. Another one from God's Node, $10. Eve in Hebrew equals 19. 19 cycles of the moon, woman's menstrual cycle and the moon, woman's attraction to Wiccan. Hey, you're telling me, boss. I get it. Bitches are fucking obsessed with Wiccan. And people say you shouldn't curse when you're doing a service like this. We didn't say any prayers at the beginning of this. We're not going to say any prayers at the end of this. If you want to be all tidy and squared away and, goody two shoes, go blow yourself. I don't give a shit. Okay? Go somewhere else. This is not your 100% clean Bible study. We're extracting the truth out of this thing. We're not pretending we're a bunch of nuns. I'm not a nun. Okay? We're going to read this thing. If there's any truth in here, I'm going to crack it out like a nut. Okay? And if you're getting triggered, this isn't the show for you. I like to curse. If I get older, I might curse less. Who cares? Okay, let me be young and fucking blow me. So.
And women in Judaism are required to take the mikvah after their menstrual cycles, by the way. We talked about the mikvah earlier.
Sweet. Nice. No, you want to fill us in on that, Shem?
That's pretty much it. I mean, that's why there's a protest going on within the Jewish community right now, because some woman, I forget what her name is, wants a divorce from her husband, but within Judaism there's certain laws about divorce that have to be followed. So a lot of women are not doing mikvah right now, so their husbands can't have.
Ew.
Yeah, so I mean,
Their husbands
you
can't
asked for
bang
it,
them through a hole in the sheet.
but the interpretation I'm getting from some of it is that actually I don't even want to bring that up. Let's just move on.
Yeah, let's move on. So, yeah, we were bouncing around a little. Good questions, guys. Any questions open. We can bounce around the Bible, but we're gonna try and plow through Genesis here. We're gonna get into the Garden of Eden here. Chapter 2, verse 9. And out of the ground made the Lord God to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight, and good for food, the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
Two separate trees.
Two separate trees. And a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from thence it was parted, and became into four heads. The name of the first is Pison, that is it, which compasseth the whole land of Havilah, where
Wow.
there is gold. And the gold of that land is good. There is bdellium, and the onyx stone. And the name of the second river is Gihon. The same is it that compasseth the whole land of Ethiopia. And the name of the third river is Hiddekel. That is it which goeth toward the east of Assyria. And the fourth river is Euphrates.
Mine says the third river is Tigris, which is interesting. And also, when you said the splitting of the river, it becomes four branches. I just came across this concept, I think earlier today, where a rabbi was talking and he was saying that there were like these four different types of sons. One of them was the good son, the evil son, the knowledgeable son, and like the unaware son. And I can't explain it right now, but I just thought it was fascinating compared to what, like, the idea of this knowledge being split into four different, because water is associated with, like you were saying at the beginning, like the original creation, like the original form,
Yeah.
and then it's split into four, which could be associated with what this rabbi is talking about with these four different types of sons, because one of them is like, well, I don't know enough about to talk about it, but fascinating. Let's continue. Sorry.
All good, man. All good. Jimmy, Florida, I hope this is an honest or innocent critique of the Bible or Christianity, because it's one that you run into a lot. It's triggered people saying, well, the Bible's been used for so much bad, and this bad guy had a Bible and he did this bad thing, and this group of bad people like to read the Bible. And, well, I think they drank water too, Jimmy. You gonna give up water? You gonna give up fresh air? You hold those in common with them. So a little easy on the trigger here, Jimmy. How many killer cults have used the word science? I'd be more worried about those ones. Okay. How many killer cults have used, you can go on and on. You could
I would say that
say
the
that
one
about
thing
anything.
the one thing that these cults have in common is a person who is in a position of power, or someone that people look up to or emulate their entire personality from, is the result of them becoming this way. So, I mean, that applies to modern day entertainment industry, the same thing that they do to destroy society. They have a person that people want to be like, that promotes certain beliefs to certain people. So it's not necessarily because of the Bible.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, it's just very silly, very childish. It's like, my mommy or my daddy beat me, and my daddy always took me to Olive Garden, and now I don't like Olive Garden. Like, fucking grow up, dude. How many people Ted Bundy was Mormon, or he, became Mormon really quickly. Am I gonna say all Mormons are serial killers? Very foolish, but that's okay, because it's an innocent and honest thought that a lot of people have. And I'm not ridiculing you. I'm ridiculing the idea, which I encounter a lot. Okay. You can't say this person did that, or this person liked that book, so that book caused, or, was integral to them doing what they did. So whatever. Just, with with all due respect, very kindergarten level logic there. That's like ethics, philosophy, religion 101. Jimmy,
Oh,
Florida, love you, bro. Yeah, dude. Olive Garden Truthers out tonight. The breadstick triggered by breadsticks. Correlation doesn't equal causation. Thank you, Vital God. That's the way it's always summed up. Nice. But here, Four Rivers of Eden. I've got to talk about Florida. I think we went over this a little bit. We're covering ground we already covered, but there's 3 Eden theories which I kind of are worth mentioning. I think we should put forth. The Garden of Eden, they tell us, is in Iraq. The Euphrates and Tigris river split there. There's a couple other rivers that fork out there too, but you don't really get a perfect 4-headed river system. And they're not all traveling the same direction. They're all going in a different direction. Okay. Well, it says Noah landed in Eurasia. Nowhere does it say he departed from Eurasia. I talk about that a ton. I don't want to waste a bunch of time on it tonight. I've got plenty of videos on Noah's Ark and the Garden of Eden theories in Florida. But basically, Noah did not depart from Eurasia. Very unlikely that he did. The flood may have reshaped the land masses. So just because those places are named Euphrates and Tigris does not mean Noah departed from there. Now, another thing is that they're not directional, nor are they a distinctly eastward landmass. The 4 Rivers of Eden in the Middle East today in Iraq, there's no eastward landmass. There's no directional flow. It's just kind of 2 rivers in a clump of some more rivers in a very dry and desolate place. Not lush, never really has been, and it takes a lot of irrigation to render those places even remotely useful for agriculture. So that's the first Garden of Eden theory, that even today, almost all modern Christians and biblical scholars cling to this as if it's like true and substantiated. It's not. It's made up. No one ever gives a critical eye to Noah departing Eurasia, landing in Eurasia, but not departing from Eurasia. So at the very least, where do those names come from? It's not where Noah landed. Sorry, it's not where Noah took off from. It's only where he landed. So clearly those names were applied after Noah landed, after the waters receded. And there might have...
And just to be clear, in Jewish tradition, it is customary to name cities, rivers, bodies of water after old places that you came from when you arrived there in the future.
Yep. Good point. So we can pretty much rest assured the Garden of Eden in Iraq is not the real one, or at least there's been some guessing has been done, right? When we look at Florida, however, this is our second Garden of Eden theory. We'll go to the North Pole first. The second Garden of Eden, 4 Rivers of Eden theory that I think is substantial and worth mentioning is the Hyperborean angle. That the 4 Rivers of Eden are the 4 cardinal directions represented by 4 rivers carving through the polar land masses. When you look at like an old map of Hyperborea or Mount Meru, at the North Pole, 4 rivers divide the land masses, the major continents, with the cardinal directions. So again, however, though, I am not convinced by the Hyperborean model. Even though I'm a big Bach Saga guy, everyone should look into the Bach Saga if you want to check out Northern Pole Eden theories. That's as good as it gets. But when I read the King James Version Bible, at least, it doesn't match up 100%. That's okay. Thank you, Shem. Thank you. That's what we're talking about. This is like your North Pole Eden theory. It usually revolves around like pictures or maps like this, where there's a Mount Meru at the North Pole, something like that. and then 4 rivers of Eden are going in different directions. That's very important because you'll notice in your King James Version why I don't necessarily subscribe to this is where is the eastern landmass? If we're talking about if we're looking at the North Pole here, where is the eastern landmass in Eden? This is the northernmost landmass. There is no east or west when you're at the North Pole. You're as north as you can get. You're at the center of the bullseye. So these 4 rivers are going in different directions. Genesis clearly states that there's an eastward landmass, like Florida, like the southeast United States, like Florida, eastward landmass, flat and low, well watered like a garden. Sounds like Florida to me. But then E. E. Callaway discovered, E. E. Callaway is Florida's 1936 Republican candidate for governor. He discovered 4 rivers of Eden along the Florida Panhandle. They terminate in the Apalachicola River, which runs into the Gulf of Mexico. And this river pretty much runs past Tallahassee up into Georgia, and right where the Florida-Georgia border is, you have the 4 rivers of Eden. We looked at them last time. We looked at them last time. We definitely went over the 4 rivers. But whatever. So yeah, 4 rivers in Eden, 4 rivers in North Florida, just like this. Eastward landmass, and they're all in the same direction. They're all leading the same direction, like the 4 fingers on your hand. So, just a theory, but if we're using a literal, if we're using a strictly literal interpretation, Florida has all the characteristics you'd expect for Eden. And latitude, same latitude. Jerusalem, the 2 rivers in the Iraq, 2 rivers of Eden in Iraq, are on the same latitude as the 4 rivers and the Florida border. Isn't that crazy?
It is. What does that mean to you?
Well, E. E. Callaway didn't even know that when he wrote his book. Here, I'll pull it up so everyone can see. It's so important. It's worth spending time on. Here.
I mean, I have some. It's giving me insane thoughts, thinking about why that could be, or what it means, but none of it based in reality or with any evidence to back it up. So, not even worth mentioning.
Here, I think you'll really like this.
John Smith exposed.
Oh, totally. Excuse me. This is my messiest folder, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Boom.
I can find the E. Callaway map.
I got one here somewhere. This is, you guys can see my screen? This is the 4 rivers of Eden in the Middle East, in Iraq. Now, there's actually only 2, and the other 2 kind of, they don't really know where they are. They might have dried up. They might they might branch off further upstream or downstream, but you don't get this perfect 4-headed river system that you get in Florida. But we do have the same latitude. So 31st degree parallel north, .00. That's precisely 31.00 degrees, the exact spot where the rivers fork. I didn't go there, but I went on Google Maps and I plotted that myself. Dropped that pin on the precise spot where the rivers fork, and it is 31 degrees precisely. So then you take this across the Atlantic. You go across the Atlantic, guys. Did you know that the border between Florida and Georgia is determined by the 30th degree parallel north? Did you know that the border between Florida and Alabama is determined by the 31st degree parallel north. Did you know that the northern end of Lake Seminole, which is what if these four rivers are the four fingers of my hand, Lake Seminole is my palm. Does that make sense? Lake Seminole is the palm in that four-finger shape. Lake Seminole, the southern end, constitutes the border between Florida and Georgia. The northern end of Lake Seminole constitutes the border between Florida and Alabama. The former being 30th degree parallel north, the latter being 31st degree parallel north. And that upper 31st degree parallel north, precisely, look how precise that is, runs right through the four fingers of the Garden of Eden, right at the top of Lake Seminole. And that is what this whole area is, what I refer to as the FAG region, the FAG zone. Florida, Alabama, Georgia. The corners of those states are constituted by Lake Seminole. Seminole refers to the Seminole Indians of Florida, but also the word Seminole can be interpreted as the beginning, first, original, a seminal undertaking, seminal vesicles, if you want to go even deeper with that. The fluid, the water of life, creation itself. Seminal. Seminal means runaway, by the way. Weren't Adam and Eve cast out of Eden? Runaway? To wander? Okay. Well, isn't that crazy? The 31st. See that line? The upper line is the 31st degree parallel north. The lower line of the panhandle is the 30th. And the 31st runs through Jekyll Island too. That's why it's Jekyll for Shekel Island, but runs through Jerusalem. Okay, so prove my point. At the very least, we're seeing the franchising of Eden. Multiple Edens on the same parallel. I think it's more likely that this is the original in Florida. Noah's Ark departed from the Gulf of Mexico using gopher wood, which only grows in this exact same riverhead area. And using gopher wood, they built an ark, pitched it with the pine in that abounds in Florida and Georgia, the turpentine industry. And they floated the ark across the Atlantic using a Gulf Stream or a trade wind type current, and then landed over in Eurasia. And then not being able to snap their fingers and return to America, to return to that Florida coastline, they could do the very best they could, which is returning to their latitude that they originated from. They can't change continents, but they can determine their latitude by using the North
Stars, right?
By using the North Pole. Super easy. You get it right out of the boat and start walking. You know exactly where you're going because you know the distance from the horizon to the North Star. That's your latitude. It's easy. It's one of the easiest things to determine in terms of geolocation is your position, your latitude from the North Pole. So, yeah,
So in this theory, would the four rivers in Mesopotamia still exist, or would they be man-made, or is it just something not even really entertaining?
Say it one more time.
So in this theory, once Noah arrived over there, would they have the four rivers over there as like a repeat type situation? Like, would they make canals to make that happen, or?
Well, so it's hard to tell. It's a lot of hypotheticals here, but I think my intuition would be that they land in Eurasia, know for sure that they can't return to the Americas. So using a geolocating device or just the North Pole, North Star, they walk back to the latitude that they originated from. And then being at the right latitude, they could kind of go laterally east or west and settle on the first major river system that they came across at that latitude. And that was as good as a new Eden, or they genuinely thought it was the original Eden and named that Tigris and Euphrates. Now, I'm very confident in the whole franchising of Eden and these two are linked by latitude. Not a mistake, not a coincidence. The only hole in this theory, it's not really a hole, it's more like a tumor. It's more like an additional head on a Siamese twin, is that not only are there two Garden of Edens, I was telling this story to my friend Andrew, and he goes, hey, I think you might want to look into Mount Kailash. There's 4 sacred rivers coming from Mount Kailash in Tibet, which is literally the Mount Meru of East Asia. Okay? Who's ever heard of Mount Kailash? Kailash.
I have. That's what I was saying earlier. Like I was getting some insane thoughts based on what you're saying, is because a lot of these rivers do have traits of being canals, as ridiculous as it sounds. But even people like Diodorus Siculus or Herodotus talk about people making these man-made canals or rivers that are extremely large in what is considered by mainstream history to be ancient times, right? So when you're talking about 4 rivers existing in Florida, 4 rivers existing in Mesopotamia, 4 rivers existing in Tibet, I think there's like one other location that I've heard of, but I don't remember off the top of my head right now. It's like, okay, so are these people traveling around and intentionally creating this type of situation?
Well,
Because
yep.
Well,
Continue.
I mean, I was gonna say, like, if we're considering this to be legit, and there is a group of people who originally were Jews who came up with the Bible and stuff like that, they do have like a cycle within their religion to where they specifically make things happen in certain years and certain days intentionally based on like a tradition that's been passed down since the beginning of time. So it would kind of make sense in that context. And I don't know if we're going to make it to there today, but the idea of when Noah was trying to figure out if the flood was over with and the dove comes with an olive branch, the dove, in some interpretations by some of these scholars that we're referring to, they say a dove is a person who belongs to this mystery religion or secret society who is enlightened with this knowledge that we're talking about, the garden, with the knowledge of good and evil from the tree. And an olive branch, an olive oil is what is used to burn this eternal flame in a lot of these temples. And some interpretations of the flood say that Noah's family wasn't the only ones to survive. There are other people who survived. So potentially when he landed in Mesopotamia, a dove coming with an olive branch could have been someone who was already enlightened with this material, speaking to him in a certain way. So, like I said, not much evidence to support what I'm saying, but this is just what I'm thinking as we're talking.
Right. Guys, we're looking at Mount Kailash, which is the, I don't know what you call it, a fountainhead. It is the point where 4 major rivers of Hinduism and Buddhism come out from. They originate from Mount Kailash. 4 major sacred rivers. And those include the Ganges and the Indus, I believe. Definitely the Ganges. 4 major rivers of, I don't know if it's India, but Hinduism come from, and Buddhism originate from Tibet here. Now, when you click on this, go look up Mount Kailash. I actually have my window up here, but it's hidden from the window sharing for some reason. But I'm looking at it right here. I've got it highlighted. 31.0 degrees latitude. 31.0. Guys, that's like within a couple hundred yards of each other. 31.066. These are within 0.1 of each other latitude. So Mount Kailash, obviously not a flat, low, fertile, lush, tropical garden. Neither is the Middle East. But you do find the rivers, you do find major rivers, and you do find them being sacred or attributed, holiness. So,
or some Indians, they spend all their life savings basically to just travel to the Ganges for when loved ones die. Or like it's just like this big event for them where they travel miles and miles, sometimes for days, to get there. Whole village will put their money together just to do it.
Well, think about the Mount Meru and the 4 rivers of Eden in Hyperborea theory, also originating from a Mount Meru. They literally call Mount Kailash Mount Meru, and they have 4 rivers coming out from it. Definitely same story as the Hyperborean Eden, just not at the North Pole, right? Yeah. So guys, go look up Mount Kailash if this interests you. But Four Rivers of Eden, that's where we, you know, stepped out on the Bible here when we hit the Four Rivers of Eden part. But we're just kind of debating, you know, where are the Four Rivers of Eden? Are they literal, physical? Well, here's a little bone I'll toss you guys. We can argue about where they are physically in the world, but I can guarantee you where they are anatomically. The four-headed river system in your forehead. The nerves, the arteries, the cerebrospinal fluid, the watering of the gardens is an internal process. So guys, you know, Dr. Longo is not out of the loop on this, you know, allegory stuff. But you've got to have the true literal to build an allegory with. You can't have a false, inconsistent story and try and build the truest, most blossoming fractal allegory out of that. You have to have a true literal story to build a true allegory out of. You were saying, Shem?
I was gonna say that's. I mean, that's why I was saying earlier that I think that these stories are divine because they do apply. You can take them literally, and you can do all these different things with them.
Yeah.
I hope we get to the part about their eyes being opened and stuff like that, so we can talk more about what the Garden of Eden could represent in an allegorical sense in relation to reality and humanity. But it is pretty far along from where we are now. I mean, based on, you know, what we've done so far.
I think we'll get there for sure. We'll turbo speed through the next bits. But Garden of Eden, Four Rivers, I hope we did that justice. Definitely have talked about it way too much already on my YouTube channel. So you can go look up all the videos I've done on the Four Rivers. Just trying to do it justice here, moving forward.
I think we're on 15.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And the Lord God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. So just to, you know, we're keeping notes here. Man was already created and was created outside of the garden, or at least not in the garden. And the garden had to be created afterwards, and man was placed in it. Not woman, not female, not in the picture yet, at least not explicitly. So,
Interesting.
what is our job too? What's our duty? Primary duty of man, primary function of man, laid out. And the Lord God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. We're gardeners, guys. All you loser, LARPing, hunter, Chad bros with your compound bows and fucking, you know, elk musk, fucking losers. Total degenerate losers, just playing with your dick all day. If you're out hunting, you're not a gardener. You don't walk with God. You're just fucking around in the woods. Getting, you know, every day you're getting lucky. You're not accidentally shooting yourself, not falling out of a tree. You know, humans are fumbling doofuses. Our talents are spiritual, philosophical, logical, rational. Man does not have much talent for climbing trees and surprising things, and truly, only when man is aided by the most unnatural devices can man have a level playing field out in the real wild. I'm not talking your little gaming preserve at the end of your county. I'm not talking about your little, you know, half the forest has been cut down. There's like nothing in there that's going to kill you. Just you and a gun and a bunch of deer. No, I'm talking about the jungle, baby. Okay, I'm talking about Florida in the 1300s. before Europeans even showed up. Okay. Wild animals, who knows? We don't want to go too far down a hypothetical.
Before
here.
the merchants made all the animals extinct, basically.
That,
But
yeah.
as far as tending to the garden, that's also like in a spiritual context. You're responsible for maintaining that pureness and that relationship with God.
Wonderfully said. You're right. Yes, it's like the Zen garden, definitely keeping your peace, inner sanctity, connection to God, pruning your, impure thoughts, things like that. The garden is a timeless allegory for, being spiritually sound, tending to a garden. So definitely, Shem, you're right. There's a allegory here that's not over the top like astrology or it's just a good old allegory, which is the garden is you're guarding against demons, guarding against bad lifestyle choices. Garden, you're growing things, you're bringing about fruit. So all of these are easy like softball religious symbols, but
16.
here I'm gonna go smoke some pot. Is that all right? Can you carry us?
Yeah,
Can
I'll
you
read some
carry us
of it.
for a bit?
Go for it.
We're at
16.
16. Thank you. Hang on, one different page. $16.
The devil's lettuce.
Oh yeah.
What's your
Genesis
opinion on
chapter.
that name?
We're gonna get into it. It's in the Lord's holy incense. Fucking, you can have my short term. God, you can take my short term memory. Take it all. Don't leave any left. As long as you give me the deep religious insights, the fruits of philosophical thought, I could care less about my short term memory. So
I mean,
yeah.
I'm not against weed at all. So,
I'm
and the
kidding.
Lord God commanded the man, saying, "Of every tree of the garden you are free to eat, but as for the tree of knowledge of good and bad, you must not eat it, for as soon as you eat of it, you shall die." So this is actually a pretty important part compared to what you were talking about with Cronus and stuff like that earlier.
I'm gonna go smoke. Hold it down, bro.
We can go
I
back
like
into
what
this
you're doing.
because I think in the next section it goes back into it again. So I'll just keep reading while you're gone.
Take it wherever you want. I trust you.
Stay safe. Okay, so the Lord God said, "It is not good for man to be alone. I will make a fitting helper for him." And the Lord God formed out of the earth all the wild beasts and all the birds of the sky, and brought them to the man to see what he could call them. And whatever the man called each living creature, that would be its name. And the man gave names to all the cattle and to the birds of the sky and to all the wild beasts. But for Adam, no fitting helper was found. So the Lord God cast a deep sleep upon the man, and while he slept, he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh in that spot. And the Lord God fashioned the rib that he had taken from the man into a woman, and he brought her to the man. Then the man said, "This one at last is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. This one shall be called woman, for from man was she taken." So what I find interesting about that is some of the esoteric interpretations, because some of the religious scholars in history, this is a little bit above PG-13, but the gash of the female genitalia is oftentimes associated with this procedure of taking the rib out of the man. It's a similar shape depicted in a lot of the art that talks about this, and it's the one part of the body that's a continuous open wound, and it ties into the mystery religion a bit too. So we won't get too much into that, but let's continue here. So we're on 24. Hence a man leaves his father and mother and clings to his wife, so that they become one flesh. So this verse right here is interesting to me because we were talking earlier about the two different creations of man. And at the beginning, it seemed like when man was originally created, it was both male and female together. So this verse here talking about longing for your wife or that other half to get back to the original creation of man, which is man and woman together. So this is where we drift off a little bit from Christian values and we start to talk about weird things in history. The Scythian people, according to, I think it's Herodotus or it could be Diodorus, talking about how at one point they had defiled one of the religious temples and they were cursed with this certain disease to where a lot of their children were born as hermaphrodites going forward, which is interesting because some of the concepts of the Messiah talked about in these old sources mention how he will be of double form, and they describe him in a similar way that this hermaphrodite type of race is described.
Oh shit! You leave Shem
Yes.
alone for 5 minutes. He starts talking about hermaphrodites.
So yeah, so we won't get too far off topic with that stuff, but it is interesting that you do have that type of symbolism in both sources, and mystery religions seem to be obsessed with this point. So now that you're back,
Yep.
we're on 3 now. So I think it's right after 25 chapters.
Damn. Well, you zoomed through, dude. We're not just
We
reading.
can
We
go
gotta-
back. We can go
we gotta
back.
study it, bro. It's a Bible study, not a Bible. We're not
Well,
fucking. What is it? A speed run? We
Well,
speed running the Bible?
the reason I did that is because we're about to, once we get into part 3, like what is it, 8 or 9 or something like that, then it's basically repeating the same stuff. So we could have, that's why I was saying we could just talk about it there. But yeah, I mean, I'm down to go back because there
Yeah.
is stuff in there to elaborate on. For example, but for Adam, no fitting helper was found. So that's after the creation of all beasts who are allegedly servants to man. So he did not find a suitable helper in all of them, even though they're supposed to be taking off the hardships of work and other things from him. So it's still longing for that emotional companionship with a female, right?
Right. You want
But
to tell us what that's like? You tell us what that feels like?
I think
That's
everyone knows that feeling of wanting to find
That's a-
your other half. You know, it's just I think that's human nature.
Yeah.
But I actually
Um,
wanted to kind of take a quick break too. Can you take the reins for a second? We'll
Of
grab water.
course. Yeah, for sure. Just back to the 4 rivers of Eden. The whole thing about Florida having the 4 rivers of Eden, that's not a ridiculous thing to say, because all of the physical landmarks which are described, all of the geological identifiers are present in Florida. Florida-Georgia border, I should say. Then the first river, right, Pison, the name of the first is Pison. That is it which compasseth the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold. And the gold of that land is good. Now, when God says gold is good, I think that means real good. And gold can symbolize a whole lot of things. But let's at least allow it to mean gold, right? Let's not rob gold of its literal meaning, gold. And is there good gold in Florida? Florida-Georgia border? Well, you may not think so, but you may not have heard so, but it is a fact. The purest gold that has ever been found. Look it up. The purest gold that has ever been found. Dahlonega, Georgia. Dahlonega. I always say that wrong. Never heard it said before until my buddy corrected me, Jeff. But Dahlonega. 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 24 karat in its naturally occurring state. 22 karat up to 24 karat. The gold of Florida, South Georgia, especially South Georgia, is a gold belt in Georgia. Not many people know about it because it's deposited in clay in quartz. It's very like muddy. You can't really dig into it. You have to sift through rivers. It's tough. The Indians used to sift and get a lot of it, but you know, it's time consuming. So people would rather dig it out, and they wanted to push people west. So they said, "Oh, California gold. Oh, New Mexico. Oh, you know, no. Florida, Georgia, South Georgia had the purest gold all along. Always has. It's probably why they named it Georgia for King George. They wanted that gold. Queen Elizabeth put out orders for Georgia gold. I mean, all the British royals have put out orders for Georgia gold. They want Georgia gold in their vaults. Look it up. It's a fact. Swear to God. All the Fort Knox gold, where's that coming out of? Mostly Georgia. They might not admit that. Dahlonega Mint. That was America's #1 purest mint. We used to mint gold coins there. I think until a little bit after the Civil War. I could be wrong, or you know, I don't know. Really don't know on that actually, but don't know when it went out. But it's in a couple videos of mine. So E. Calloway talks about that. Yeah, gold. Good gold. Really good. Really, really good gold. Then you've got Second River. Well, still in the First River, leading to Havilah. And the gold of that land is good. There is bdellium and the onyx stone. What's bdellium? Bdellium is resin, like a tree sap. Right? Onyx stone is marble, typically with dark, dark colors in it. Both of those can be found in South Georgia in
This
abundance.
one says lapis lazuli in this translation too, but it says down here in the notes, others say onyx, meaning of the Hebrew shoham is uncertain.
Yeah. Bdellium. What does it say for bdellium? Same word?
Yeah, it's the same one. Medallion
Does
is
it-
not.
does it-
There's no notes or anything, so it must just be. Yeah, it says
Hmm.
Bdellium is there and lapis lazuli, but the note for lapis lazuli says, yeah, others onyx, the meaning of Hebrew shoham uncertain.
Well, also lapis lazuli is very vague. The name is vague in general. It just means blue stone, pretty much. But bdellium and onyx found in Florida, Georgia, in abundance. The principal industries of Florida and Georgia for the longest time were pine sap, pine resin, turpentine. You can still walk through the forests of Florida and trip over the clay turpentine pots. This was all over the state and all of the forests. Everywhere that there was pine trees, they were harvesting the sap for turpentine. Now that's also something you can use for pitching a boat, to waterproof a boat, to seal wood. And that's important later on. So then the onyx, there's white and black marble in Tate marble quarry, which is considered inexhaustible in Georgia, where one of these 4 rivers leads that we were looking at earlier. So we've got the gold, we've got the onyx, we've got the bdellium, and what else? Ethiopia. This is a trippy one. Where Ethiopia would be, there's a place, an ancient Native American complex called Etowah. Etowah. E-T-O-V-A. Because W goes hard in some languages. E-T-O-V-A. Ethiopia. That's pretty dang close, considering these people have never heard of each other, according to mainstream academia, and it's the same vicinity that E. Calloway is writing a book about. He didn't even put that in here. He might not have even known. I looked at it. I saw Etowah in Ethiopia, and I'm like, hello. And then you look at the Etowah mounds, and they've got like all the religious iconography, all the symbols of all the world religions found in the Etowah Mounds, just about. The Hamza.
It's fascinating. I want to
You've
look those
got
up.
you've got iterations of the fleur-de-lis. They even say that there's an Adam and Eve figurines, like effigies, like statues that they pulled out. Pretty crazy. So Etowah is a whole rabbit hole in itself. That could be Ethiopia in the Bible. A lot of black people over there too. So, it's ringing true on all fronts. But then the Lord God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden. We went through that. The tree. Someone said we skipped over the tree of knowledge of good and evil. I've given my 2 cents on the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It's not, groundbreaking. I didn't come up with it entirely, but I've adopted it for this whole Florida theory, which I don't know if anyone takes seriously, but there's a lot of good sync-ups in here. Terrence McKenna wrote, what is it, Food of the Gods? Something like that. I forget the name of his book. But he puts forth what has been called the stoned ape theory, which is basically man was at least aided in his mental, intellectual, philosophical ascent from the animals, at least in part by drugs, mushrooms, ayahuasca, who knows. There's a fucking cockroach on the ceiling right now. Huge one.
I mean, I do think that there's something to your theory, especially with the Semitic similarities with the Native American tribes, and then with this theory you're talking about now with the aiding of psychedelic mushrooms. A lot of the mystery cults in Greco-Roman society revolved around this type of psilocybin-based hallucination, and then there's obviously the black drink and other drinks in America, which could be related to that. But what's fascinating about that to me is that I think it's called the fulgum. It's like this concept of lightning striking the ground and then mushrooms growing from it.
Yes.
Related to Zeus. Like when I first heard about that, I thought it was shocking, especially in relation to the whole Garden of Eden story, because. Well, did you want to finish your thought on the tree of knowledge of good and evil before I go into that?
No, dude, you made me think of something else really good about spontaneous creation with the Fulgurites. You know that in Florida, one of the only instances ever recorded of a new element being created out of thin air occurred when lightning struck a tree in Florida, near Tampa Bay.
Interesting. What do they call it? Do you remember?
I
don't think I've heard the story before. But yeah, the lightning strike, because with the ancient Hestia or Vesta cults, like the eternal flame, you've heard of that concept before. The way that flame was said to be started was from cockroaches dropping down on you.
Dude, I'm getting chills, dude. All right, I don't want to gross people out. We keep the store nice and clean, but it's Florida and it's about to be summer. This thing is
Wow,
dude, not cool, bro. Oh man, this thing's like right on top of me. All right, guys. Dr. Longo is gonna deal with something. Hey, all my vegan followers, turn the stream off right now. It's not gonna be pretty. We have a broom. A broomstick.
one thing I forgot to mention earlier about the Scythians, for anyone who's actually keeping track of what we're talking about, is that in some sources the Scythians are allegedly the Ashkenazi. For example, in the book that I'm reading right now, there's actually a map that shows the Scythians as being the Ashkenazi.
There could be truth to that. That's kind of like you're using very big,
I'm just trying to keep it
big
going while
terms.
you're killing the bug, but I'll continue it since you're actually listening. I'll continue with what I was saying before. So the Temple of Vesta or Hestia in ancient Greco-Roman society, according to mainstream history, the way that the eternal flame was started, that they kept in those temples, was via lightning strike. So that's why they did everything possible to keep that flame going. You see relations in Zoroastrianism today. So they'll take that original flame from Zoroastrianism and they'll go to other temples and light it using that same flame just in case it goes out. They'll be able to relight it. So an interesting connection to what we're talking about now is that what takes place inside of the temple in Jerusalem if it were to be rebuilt? Well, there would be an eternal flame on the inside of that temple, which seems to be representing the same thing. For some reason, in the Zohar and the Talmud, and I think that's about it, they talk about the Sabbath representing the only child of God, and that child in those texts is said to be a female known as Sabbath. Now, is that referring to the nation of Israel? Because sometimes we refer to nations as females, right? Colombia, all that stuff. Who knows? But it is interesting that they do make that connection. So here's that map. Actually, I'll show you real quick. So this is in the Bible that I'm reading right now. At the very top here, it says Ashkenazim are the Scythians. I don't know if you can even see that, but
Mm-hmm.
so these people who wrote this book believe that the Ashkenazim are Scythian.
Well, they typically say that the Jews are in part descended from the Scythians. So if they're saying, if they're in line with mainstream academia who says Ashkenazis are a branch of
You want to know?
like ethnic Judaism, which I disagree with, it's it's already like it's commonly accepted that the Jews are in part descended from the Scythians, who got a lot of their culture.
I agree. I think it might even go back to the Kenites. I was talking earlier about the split between Judah and Israel in the north, which Judah teamed up with the Assyrian Empire to basically get rid of Israel to force them to come into Judah. But anyways, when the Sea Peoples invaded, allegedly the people who are now known as the Jews went into the mountains and came into contact with a tribe called the Kenites, who were like a nomadic tribe, and they're responsible for giving them weapons to be able to go back and reconquer Israel. So these Kenites are possibly related to the Scythians, but obviously there's a lot of debate amongst that. One more thing that's fascinating about the Jews and the Scythians is that in old Encyclopedia Britannica is like the first edition through I think like the 9th edition. If you look up the origins of fortifications, like star forts or whatever you want to call them, it literally says in there that Jewish people and Scythians, for some reason it only mentions those two people, and it says they are the originators of fort cities and fortified cities used for trade.
Nice.
Strange. But
Well, back
back
to
on topic.
Genesis.
Yeah,
All
let's get
good.
back on topic.
Tree of knowledge of good and evil. Let's just, we don't. I mentioned Terrence McKenna. Other people have talked about it. We're not going to exhaust ourselves, addressing all the people who've touched on it. But just running through it, it's fairly obvious if you're interpreting this literally. It's almost got to be some type of psychoactive drug, fruit, spoiled fruit with, alcohol in it that causes a stupor or, ergo, something. A fruit body. But I think it's fairly evident it's a mushroom in my eyes. You've got a whole lot of ancient art that might say otherwise, but a lot of it definitely.
Roach check.
Dude, I'm looking over.
I don't blame you. I clean apartments for a living, so sometimes if they like spray for roaches or something, a few stragglers will still be left. It's the worst thing ever when that happens.
Yeah, he got up in the bookshelf. I couldn't get him. He's just in one of the corners now, and I'm hoping he doesn't crawl back over my head. But
Wonder what book he's gonna choose.
I don't know. I'm gonna name that fucking thing Mike Pence, the rich. So let's just tree of knowledge of good and evil. Okay. But of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt not eat of it. For in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die. And the Lord God said, it is not good that the man should be alone. Okay, so just on the tree of knowledge part. Hey, what fruit can make you die? What fruit is worth being warned against? When you understand that mushrooms, the psychoactive part of the mushroom is the fruit body. It is the fruit of the mushroom. This is normal, academic terminology. You don't have to interpret mushroom as a fruit. Mushroom is defined as a fruit. It's the fruiting body, the sexual, appendage of the organism. It is the fruit. And earlier in the Bible, we see fruit being defined as sex, like sexuality, reproductive capability. So fruit is just the fruiting body. It doesn't have to be a fruit with a seed or a stem or a leaf, like an apple. This is this is the fruiting part of an organism, the fruit.
It's interesting because mushrooms are also referred to as meat in some sources. So you get the fruit and the meat covered by that same organism.
Definitely. And man was created as a fruitarian, a vegan. There's no denying this. In the Garden of Eden, man does not consume animals. He's given dominion over the animals, not a menu with them on it. He's not given diet over the animals. He's not given fangs over the animals. He's given dominion. Is the leopard given dominion over its prey? Is the polar bear given dominion over its prey? No. Dominion is responsibility. Dominion is investment, engagement. Dominion is a plan, an arrangement, a master plan that's going to be brought about using these pieces, right? Dominion is what we can exert over them. It's not what we can do to them. This is the divine plan. Dominion, we're the shepherds. We name the animals, give them names, give them identity, give them individuality, which they'd be bereft of in nature. You're just a blind organism acting on blind impulse. The sheer presence of man in an animal's life adds a dimension, new dimension to its meaning. It's literally adding a new dimension to the animal's life, being around it. You're the ambassador of God in the life of the animal. And your very presence, you're interjecting to their simple, mundane, animalistic lives. The sole fact that you experience morality will stir something in the animal.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact passage, but there is something that talks about how the reason that animals basically fear man is because we were made in the image of God, and like no other animal or creature has the same presence that we do in the presence of animals. I don't remember what
people talk about animals being afraid of humans. I don't understand this. Everywhere I've ever looked, man has the ability to come closest to every animal. Each animal, no matter how despicable and dangerous, violent and carnivorous, man can come to friendship with every animal on the planet. The largest whale, the smallest mouse, the smallest insect even, can develop a relationship with man. You betray that trust and that endowment when you consume animals. The corpses of animals, we betray that talent, that responsibility. And, I'm judging us off an Edenic, what's the word?
paradigm. I don't know.
Rubric. Is that what you call it? Rubric?
Yeah, like an outline of rules. Yeah, like an outline.
Yeah. I'm judging us. I'm judging us off Eden. I'm not judging us off when we landed after the flood. And hey, anything goes now. You can eat whatever you want. No, that didn't really get us anywhere. I see a lot of degradation and sin and distrust and lack of faith. Man should strive to be like the Garden of Eden. Jesus said, strive for perfection, don't settle. So,
Well, I was thinking about this earlier when I was waiting for my kiwi to ripen. When fruits and vegetables, basically, like after they die or they're cut from the plant, it takes time for them to they get better. For a period of time, they get better as they decay. Whereas meat or animals, when they die, you pretty much have like a small time frame to eat them before you can no longer eat them, and they decay a lot faster and become more negative as time goes on, which I thought was interesting. But it could be inaccurate in a way. I don't know. I don't know the actual process of how long it takes from the butcher shop to the store or something like that. So maybe I'm wrong, but it was a fascinating idea that I was thinking of earlier.
The average bite of meat that goes in your mouth has been dead for a week. You're more likely looking at 2 weeks. If it's been frozen, it could be months and months. Could be a years. Believe it or
So
not.
the best time to consume meat, basically
never.
what I'm saying is theoretically.
Never. At your mom's house, when I'm having dinner with your mom, is the only time you're allowed to have meat. Okay?
No, but listen real quick.
You got that? That goes for everyone out there. The only time you're allowed to eat meat is when I'm having dinner with your mom. Okay?
The difference between meat and fruits and vegetables is what I'm saying is like the best time to eat meat theoretically would be right after you kill it. Whereas with fruits and vegetables, they get better after you theoretically kill them by taking them from the plant. You wait. Whereas meat gets worse after you kill it. See what I'm saying?
Yes. Well, fruit has its own immune system. How can we prove that fruit is the most immune boosting food? Fruit has its own immune system. Flesh has nothing. Flesh is dead. A corpse is dead. A corpse is rotting. Immediately, it begins rotting. That's why you have to chill it, freeze it. Fruit and vegetables last for weeks. It was months sometimes. I mean, I've had citrus sit on my dashboard for, months. And you can eat it. Onions stay good for months if you keep them correctly stored. I mean, to think that you're on the side of light and life and truth by consuming corpses, you're the biggest clown in the world. If you think that carnivore diet has anything to do with ascension or light or heaven, good karma. Okay. So, man, blah, blah, blah. Man was created as a fruitarian. So we were only supposed to eat fruit. The point about the tree of knowledge of good and evil we're getting at here. Sorry, forgive me for the triggered vegan rant. It's practically my middle name. Okay? Everyone knows that's what you get on this YouTube channel. If you want to see the good, amazing, 5-star, free, conspiracy theory, old world documentaries, you gotta put up with the vegan rants. That's the catch. That's the
Fine print.
for real. But the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Why I'm talking about us being fruitarian in the Garden of Eden? Well, it's obvious, it's explicit, but it explains why there might have been a limitation placed on something like a mushroom. As Shem mentioned earlier, mushrooms are practically alive. They're practically fleshy. Some would argue they're more animal than vegetable, but they're not vegetable at all. They're not. That they are different. That being said, they're still fruit. They're still considered fruit, and that can't be ignored. But why would there be a limitation placed on one type of fruit? Well, the fact that it's almost animal could be cause for, a taboo, especially for a fruitarian, naturally fruitarian, vegan, fruit-loving, vegetable-loving animal. Mushroom might be a total new shockwave that is different from the cell walls of vegetation. This is a little bit in the animal category. So even for a fruitarian, this might be like, hey, that's like consuming a corpse. It's like creating death. It wasn't in the instruction manual from the get-go. And this is all, just an interpretation.
Well, it's interesting. It's a fascinating interpretation because
But well, here, let me say that the mushroom, we can pretty much put the nail in the coffin when we come to the sentence where it says, you'll die. If you eat this, you'll die. If that's not a mushroom, I don't know what is. If that's not a psychedelic mushroom, it's not an ayahuasca trip to me, because this is fruit, right? And tree, you could say, well, where is the tree on a mushroom? Well, there's a stalk, there's a stem, there's a head, there's often underground root network that you can't see that connects many, many fruits, across a wide distance. So a tree could be up for interpretation, but mushrooms are indeed a fruit. Knowledge of good and evil. Mushrooms, psychedelic mushrooms, definitely have a dose of knowledge of good and evil. So, but the taboo coming from the fact that they are part, flesh almost. And another thing, why are they taboo? Well, they grow out of poop a lot of the time. And if it's an unsanitary thing, you got to think this is written down by Jewish people, very sanitary, race, very obsessed with cleanliness, or at least, I know Stay White's gonna have a field day with that one, but just saying there's an emphasis on cleanliness. Whether these were the real people who wrote it, I'm not saying anything, but there's an emphasis on cleanliness in the Bible, like most religious texts. Mushrooms have different reasons that they could be considered unclean for consumption. The fact that they're close to an animal, the fact that they grow low on the ground, often out of poop, especially the psychedelic ones, it could be reasons that there's a taboo on them. And there was maybe an instruction not to eat them. And because obviously, here's the biggest, warning, most of them can kind of kill you. If you just eat them raw, you don't know what you're doing. Tons of mushrooms out there will kill you. So there may have been a restriction placed on one class of fruit, that being all mushrooms in general. But you might get lucky with a few. And I think that might be what happened here to Adam and Eve. Eve first, then Adam. But here.
I think it's an interesting interpretation. If I can just add a couple things real quick. I mean,
Of course.
You mentioned the whole thing about them growing from poop. You have to think about the potential of a carnivore eating another animal, especially like a pig or something, and then pooping out, and then mushrooms grow from that. So that would automatically be closer to consuming meat in a way. So the prohibition could come from that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also mentioned the idea of psychedelics. Once you trip on some sort of psychedelic, you can never be really the same person again. So that in a way is unlocking that knowledge of good and evil. But that's pretty much it. Let's continue.
Definitely. We don't want to get too pretentious and lame and heady with all the consciousness, dribble, but exactly what Shem said is drugs change you. They put you through a type of death. Psilocybin especially is much more holistic. You feel like you're going to die, but at the same time, you feel kind of great afterwards. Other drugs just leave you feeling terrible afterwards. Mushrooms always kind of seem to fix things or kind of tweak you for the better a little bit. Not always, but I think everyone can agree mushrooms have that effect. And when we look at the terminology here, especially knowledge of good and evil, I mean, man, you'll have some reflections, some epiphanies. You'll ponder some shit if you take enough mushrooms. You'll be like, hey, was I right there? Was I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right thing with my life? You'll have some major course corrections. on a, hefty mushroom trip. But also,
Shout out to the people who do psychedelics and then continue their normal life afterwards. I've met a few people like that, and I'm just impressed by it. So I don't know how they do that, but congratulations.
you haven't taken any psychedelics?
No, I mean I'm talking about other people. Like I've met people who have taken psychedelics and then they continue to like, or at least on the outside, maybe they behind closed doors are different, but they appear to be the same.
Like,
Yeah,
when
I
you
mean-
mean the same, like they don't change their interests?
Yeah, like they're still kind of on that what's promoted to them as the lifestyle they should be living type mindset, as opposed to thinking about things more rationally or considering things like, hey, an animal might not be so much less than me that I could like beat the fuck out of it or something. Like some of these people, like you would think someone who tripped on mushrooms or something like that would be able to have the mindset to think like an animal has feelings, so I'm not going to hurt it. But there are people out there who like take mushrooms and then they continue to like be in that mindset to where they'll be like, oh, an animal is just nothing and I can just kill it if I want to or run it over in my car, you see what I'm saying? Or whatever else. Like it's so it is interesting that there are people out there who take those drugs and then they still remain in that mindset to me.
Well, sometimes it's not about what you incorporate, but what you exclude from your lifestyle. Like, you need to cut out the booze, cut out the, negative women, cut out the other things in your life, because a mushroom can be like a lightning strike. Get struck by lightning, it's like a coconut to the head. And if you're not in the right mindset, you can kind of lock you into a schizo space, right? I've seen that. I've definitely had friends who took too many mushrooms and just like fucked their head up. But was it taking too many mushrooms, or were they just, too stupid to begin with? Was their ceiling too low to begin with? Did they do them with the wrong people, with the wrong music, with the wrong environment, wrong lighting? Who knows? But let's just push on here. But of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die. Yeah. You take mushrooms, you'll hear a ton of people. You'll feel it yourself. You'll hear other people say it. I felt like I was going to die. Thought I was going to die. I felt like I died. I died and then I came back. People always say this type of stuff on a mushroom trip. So no surprise here, really. And the Lord God said, it is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him an helpmeet for him. And out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of the field, and every fowl of the air, and brought them unto Adam to see what he would call them. And whatsoever Adam called every living creature, that was the name thereof. And Adam gave names to all cattle, and to the fowl of the air, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found an helpmeet for him. And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs, and closed up the flesh instead thereof. And the rib which the Lord God had made, taken from man, made he a woman, and brought her unto the man. And Adam said, this is now bone of my bones, and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. So, the deep sleep. Man's next function, one of his original functions, I don't know, third or fourth, duties, is to name things. Adam is supposed to name things. I interpret that as saying our, endowment over the other animals is the ability to talk. Not just to make a noise. All animals can make noises, but we have words. We have actual words, descriptors, names. That's clearly what separates us from other animals who have ways of making noise and talking with noise, communicating. We have words. Ultimately, words are just names of things. Every word is a name of a concept or a thing or an action. So man's original duty, his greatest ability, superpower over the animals is speech, words, articulation.
Construction of languages.
Totally. Naming the animals, naming nature, coming up with all the words to fill in the blanks in between. That's what we're supposed to be doing. That's why I like words so much. It's okay to play with the words. It's okay to lose yourself and study words because that's our original function. Check out the Bach Saga if you need to learn more about the alphabet and how interesting the English language is. But yeah. So naming things, that's our gift. That's our job, right? So study names, study words, try and speak more than one language, right? But now we come to the part of Eve being created and Adam being put under a deep sleep. And it seems like there's a little bit of surgery going on, right? Now, you don't need to be Zechariah Stitchin to think, well, why is he taking a rib out? What's in a rib? Well, genetic material, bone marrow. The rib is often one of the places that they, doctors go right to if they need some extra bone marrow, if they need some extra genetic material, if they need some extra bone, even, because you typically don't need your lowest ribs, your outermost ribs. You don't really need them unless you're, doing a lot of tumbling and fighting. They're just there for extra protection. You can take them away, and certain people have to, Man, I'm getting fucking spooked. Cockroach. Nothing, not on me. False alarm, guys. False alarm. But I'm tripping. Fucking smoking that cockroach kush. My free time. That OG Soros paranoia. Pineapple paranoia. Guys, that new strain from True Leaf. Love it, guys. That Carolina cockroach. Oh, shit, there it is. I'm not kidding. Fuck. I knew I was feeling jumpy for a reason.
What? Got down there quick. That has to be another one.
Dude,
Wait, what? Is that an actual cockroach right there? Hold on.
Get wrecked. Get wrecked, bro. Oh, what's
RIP.
that? What's that, Paranoid American? What's that? What was the title of your comic? What was the title of that smut you're peddling? No, tell us more about your time working at Disney. Oh, how many? Oh, wow. What degree of Freemasonry are you? Very good.
What soul do you think?
What? Sorry?
The end of Plato's Republic, where they're talking about the underworld, which is actually somehow similar to Jewish mythology, where people pick their next incarnation among animals or humans.
What do they call it? Sheol?
Yeah.
Sheol? A shithole. They're all going towards a shithole.
You just ended someone's time, and now they're going back and they can pick a new body, according to Plato. Shout out to that roach.
Yeah, no, that was a Mossad. That was a Mossad bug for sure. We're right over target here with the Jesus bombs, guys. the Bible bombs. So cockroach down. Okay, I can breathe. A little a little more less stressed now. Cockroach threat, ice threat is neutralized. But this whole
Someone said,
surgery. Sorry.
I was gonna say someone said that's Buddhism. Yeah, I mean it's pretty much every religion because for some reason they all have the same concept.
Yeah, guys. Don't feel bad for bugs. Okay. Trust me. Bugs don't feel bad for you. Okay. The whole surgery scene here, where woman is created, Eve is created out of Adam's rib. Well, he's put under asleep. Seems like it's like a anesthetic, right? He's put under, and he cuts out his rib. It literally describes a surgery, and he takes out the rib, and we can only guess the rib was chosen because it's not necessary. It's I don't know if it's expendable, but you don't need it. You can take it out and survive just fine. Just ask Marilyn Manson or whatever. Hashtag self suck. He's a goat. He's a goat. Total box hoggo guy. Capricorn. But took the rib because it was unnecessary. Could be spared. Is rich with genetic material. Has marrow in it, things like that. Red blood cells are produced inside the bone. Is that right? White and red blood cells both produced in bone marrow, something like that. Bone marrow is very rich for genetic material, so they take a rib. It only makes sense if you're fishing around for DNA. But there's also another interpretation here, or it kind of goes hand in hand, that the other hominid species, the other kind of primates on planet Earth, have a extra attached rib, if I'm not mistaken.
Interesting.
So their rib cage has an extra attached rib, meaning we're human is kind of one rib removed from a lot of the other monkeys and primates. So look it up, guys. Our rib cage is different than most primates and monkeys. It's one of the greatest evidences that we're not just an evolutionary, we're not just an evolution of chimpanzee or something ridiculous like that. We are related. We can be plotted in the same caste as them in nature, anatomically, but in no way are we related to them.
Yeah.
Or in no way are we identical, or in the same class as the primates when it comes to intellect.
It actually says here in this translation, the Rambam, which is Moses Maimonides, he's one of the most important Jewish scholars in history, but this is a note from him. It says, according to Rambam, the point of verse 24, which is talking about the creation from the rib, is that men are to be different from the males of the animal world, who mate and move on to the next partner. A man wishes that his wife would be with him always. Promiscuity is thus a degradation of God's intentions in creating human beings, male and female. It's basically just saying we are different and we long for that monogamy with another partner, opposed to animals who just move from one partner to the next.
Right. That makes sense.
Do you have any comments on the two of them were naked, the man and his wife, yet they felt no shame? pretty much where we're at now, unless you have something more to say about the creation.
Yeah, I mean that kind of does the mushroom trip's going to come up again, and realizing that you're naked totally makes sense with the mushroom trip. Being aware that your sexual organs are exposed, and you're not an animal. You should be covered up. Again, that's only if we're interpreting this literally, 100% literally and linearly.
Which we should, as well as figuratively.
Sure. But them being naked, it just refers to a more animalistic state. And now I tend to shy away from a linear interpretation, or strict linear interpretation, because I think you've got to leave room for it's not showing us a story in time separating us from animals. It's plotting us. It's looking at the animal kingdom as a whole and plotting us above the other animals, but necessarily using a linear story to explain that, to map it out. Does that make sense? Like, it's not saying, or at least my first interpretation is, it's not saying that mankind had no clue they were naked before. It's saying that the lower iterations of man, the predecessors to man, whatever, the organisms that are directly below man on the pyramid, evolutionary pyramid, or an anatomical pyramid, we're upright. It's fucking drunk people screaming. But it's not saying that they had no clue they were naked. It's saying that being naked wasn't an issue because you're wild, you're out in the jungle, that there's no.
I agree with you.
Right. But what's hard for me to articulate here, what I'm trying to articulate, is that it's not saying we went from animal to human. It's pronouncing the separation between us and the similar primates that may look like they're related to us, but are not our linear, direct predecessors. It's, anytime you tell a story, you're restricted to a linear, format. It's just the simple reality of opening your mouth and closing it. It has to start somewhere and end at the end, unless you're singing or doing some weird chant, technology. You've got to do your best to sum up eternal truths in a linear kind of story. It's the game of religion. It's the game of philosophy. Is you have to start the sentence somewhere and end it somewhere, and you've got to fit it. If you're gonna pack as much truth as you can into a story, you don't spend paragraphs conveying how this is non-linear. You just tell the linear story and say, hey, figure it out. That's the nature of myth and philosophy, is you have to decode the linear, writing, but it's not always that easy. Now, hope I did a good job explaining that, but I don't think man never knew he was naked. I think that there's a separation being described here from man and the animals that don't know they're naked. Animals who have no conception of being naked. They're just out in the wild, about, using their body parts for what they're for all day, never giving it second thought, not feeling shamed.
Yeah, I would say it makes it clear that they're aware that they're naked, and then the actual problem comes once they consume the fruit, and them being naked becomes a problem after that, right?
Yes.
So they're aware they're naked and that they're above animals, just like you're saying, but until they consume the fruit, they don't realize that being naked could be a problem. So they're living in paradise without having that type of thought.
Yes, exactly. Well said, Shem. And this is a good spot for us to pick up chapter 3, Genesis. Chapter 3. We will pick up on next Sunday.
Sounds good.
Shem, would you like to join us?
Yep, I'll do everything I can to be here. Appreciate you. It was a good time.
9 p.m. You'll be free.
I don't know on the spot right now, but I'll do everything possible.
Okay, guys.
Make it happen.
Guys, we're gonna do a poll in the comments right now if Shem should just put his job to the side that day and just show up no matter what. No, just kidding.
It might not be. I don't think it's job related. My dad's birthday is next weekend, so I just don't know for sure what we're doing.
Sorry for
So.
putting you on the spot. No sweat.
It's all good. But yeah, I appreciate the conversation. Shout out to the chat.
Totes. Thanks, guys. Shout out to the Bible. Shout out to Jesus. Go subscribe to Jesus, guys. Hit that, smash that like and subscribe button, guys, to Jesus.
Make sure you pre-order his new book and sign up for the trip to Moldova.
Guys, sign up for Jesus's Patreon, God's Patreon. That's really it. Yeah, sign up for the trip to whatever. Good night, guys. See you in a couple days, probably. Videos coming out soon. I'm tired. We're getting off here. Go subscribe to Tartarian Truth. He's on Instagram and YouTube. Peace, guys. Good night.
Have a good night.